Welcome to Barnstable Today. I'm Nick Cortez. Just a reminder that full-length meetings, special events, and every program we air here on Channel 18 can be viewed online. You can find it all in the town's video archives at town.barnstable.ma.us. Patrons and employees of the Hyannis Public Library last week bid a fond farewell to a woman who dedicated her professional life to helping generations of village residents discover the joy of reading. After 38 years, Library Director Anne Louise Harries called it a career this past Friday. So we sat down with Harries to hear a few chapters of what could be a good book, her own story of her 4 decades as a librarian. Well, let's go back to the very beginning of your career. Some 40 years ago, working in libraries and helping people to discover the joy of reading and thousands of books of all varieties. How'd you get started?
I decided to go to library school when I found myself a sociology major, probably unemployable. And so I went directly, 2 weeks after I graduated from college, I started library school. I had a couple mentors in my childhood who had encouraged me to be a librarian. So one was the chief of the newspaper division of the New York Public Library, and the other was the school librarian. So they had quite different positions. But I went to library school and didn't decide what kind of library I was going to work in. I took everything: reference, cataloging, children's work, public library work. As courses, I just found my list of classmates at library school at the University of Illinois, and some of them said they were definitely going to go to law library, science library, especially Anne Louise has a string after her name. So I really didn't know what I was going to do.
So what did you end up doing when you graduated and you first got a job?
I immediately got married to somebody I met at the University of Illinois, and he was in the military during the early 70s, late 60s, 1966. So he immediately stationed in Klamath Falls, Oregon, which is on the eastern side of the Cascades in the desert type area.
Okay.
Quite a shock for an Easterner.
Yeah, I would imagine so, yeah.
And I became, the first week I was there, I went to the county library and I was immediately hired to be the assistant librarian. They had a position on the books, but they didn't have any big qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
It was an interesting job.
I'm sure it was. What ended up leading you here to Hyannis?
Again, the military. My husband was stationed at North Shore Air Force Station in the 70s, and I guess 1969 we moved here for 2 years there, and then we decided to stay in the Cape and get out of the military.
So you've been here now for 38 years in this building.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about the evolution of this library and libraries in general over the decades, because when you started some 40 years ago, the internet didn't exist, computers were not prevalent anywhere. What's different now?
Everything, except the people. The people are still the library users who need service and have questions that need answered, or want just simple pleasure material like read general novels or getting their DVDs. That's something totally new. We had no movies in the old days, but then I remember the first time I bought videos for the library. They were all travel logs. I down at a conference, and at that point, people didn't even have video players. So we were just trying to stay ahead of the game. Always trying to stay ahead of what the next thing is in the world, frankly.
Sure. Now, obviously, over the course of the past couple of years, you've been dealing with the challenges as far as library funding is concerned, and you're not alone. There's been other libraries around the Cape and in the country, for that matter, who've been struggling with the same types of things. As you walk away from this, I wonder if that weighs on your mind, or if you're feeling better about where the Hyannis Library is.
It always will weigh on my mind. I mean, I've been through this before. Proposition 2.5 in the 80s, and in the 90s we had another decline. So it's just, it cycles, and everything comes around. This is an unfortunate situation for the Hyannis Library because of the funding formula. Other libraries in the country are simply being cut because of finances in the towns they are, cities they're located in, much more dramatically than even this library. So I think libraries in general are always the first to go when it comes to a budget in a community or a school district. well, librarians are always the first to be let go. So it's our society's values don't really project libraries as a major part of everybody's life.
Well, that kind of brings up an interesting question. I certainly hope personally that libraries will always exist for people, but what do you think the modern library's role is in society, and going forward, what do you think it will be?
I think that the library today is as strong as it's ever been in terms of the need for the public. It's a general place where everybody who's a taxpayer can find service from the time they're born to the time they die. That's very rare in any department in a town that serves everyone in the community if they want to take advantage of it. I think people still want to touch a book. You know, I think a nook is a great idea, but I think people like paper. And there's also a lot of people who only are visual learners. They only want to be entertained or learn from visual things like DVDs. Or the whole thing in the library world too is of downloadable books, which were preceded by books on CD, which were preceded by books on tape. There are some people who learn by hearing. So I think it's a strong institution, frankly. And I don't see it disappearing.
Ultimately, why did you end up deciding that this was the time that you would step away from your position?
Just time for me to do things that I want to do and not be restricted by my job hours and ability to take off a weekend here and there. I've reached a great age. 38 years is a long time. 40 years on the library field is a long time.
Certainly.
When I came here, I never thought I'd stay very long. So my story about that is the stationery had Muriel Batchelder's name on it. She preceded me, retired. And I used to exit out when I typed a letter. And then when the stationery ran out, I ordered new stationery with new name. And I still don't have a name on my stationery. Because I said to everybody, I don't know how long I'll be there. I don't want somebody else to have to live with my name.
What kept you around so long?
Family. And I raised 2 children here in the Cape. And once you get ingrained in the community, it's hard to leave. So I think I served 11 years on the school committee at DY when my children were in school and after they had graduated from high school. But I'm very close to the Hyannis community. I feel that it's such a diverse and wonderful place.
Just, I guess, as a permanent video capture of what kind of advice you would give to a young family as a librarian, if a mother were to come in and ask you for a recommendation on the first book for a child, what would be that?
Any book.
Any book.
Any book. My children learned to read before they went to kindergarten on their own because they always had books. When we lived in North Truro, I would wait for the mail to come so I could read Time magazine from back, front to back, cover to cover. And so they never knew a family that didn't read. So I think children need to see books. They need to know that that's an important part of your life. And I think you should bring it to the library before you have them and after you have them as many times as you can.
All of us here at Barnstable Today wish nothing but the best to Ms. Harries in all of her future endeavors. Although I have a feeling that she'll still be a familiar face at the Hyannis Library for years to come. Now, let's take a look at this week's remaining meetings. Wednesday, September 8th, the Old Kings Highway Historic District Commission meets at 7 p.m. in the West Barnstable Community Building on Route 149. And on Thursday, September 9th, Site Plan Review has a hearing in the Town Hall hearing room at 9 a.m. Well, that's all for now. I'm Nick Cortez, and we'll see you next time on Barnstable Today.